Chai After Dark includes adult language and NSFW content. If you have uncle sensibilities, this podcast is not for you. Hey potty people, salam, namaste, and sasriyakal. It's your boy, Captain Ron from GreatPods.co and co-host of Chai After Dark. We're here with another special crossover episode with our girl Shabnam. Shabnam sits down with the ladies from Reality Rewind to go back in time to Netflix's Love is Blind Season 2. They discuss the South Asians that are Deepti and Sheikh and their love story, or rather, catastrophic cluster F. The Reality Rewind podcast is rewinding back to the best and worst of reality TV with 3 reality TV loving friends, Jen, Laura, and Kristen. Links to their Instagram will be in the description. Some housekeeping notes. We are starting a premium subscription extra. There's so many ways to call it, a paid feed. You could say that too, with goodies, extra goodies, outtakes, etc. over at Patreon. And we want to make sure that you get the information. So definitely sign up to the newsletter because we'll send out a non-podcast newsletter email over there on the details. You can get first notification of the new episodes when it drops also via the newsletter. So go to chaiafterdark.com to sign up. We will have the free feed that will always remain. We're just starting some paid feed to add a little bit of these extra goodies that we have in interviews, etc. It's a great way to support us, especially with the love that we put into this show as well. So thank you for that in advance. And on that note, let's go.
Well, hello, everyone. How are you?
Hi. How are you, lovely ladies of Reality Rewind?
Oh, I'm good. How are you doing today?
Hi, Shabnam of Chai After Dark.
Yes. This is so exciting. I was rewatching some of the clips and I was shocked with Sheikh and his behavior and his total disregard of Deepti's feelings, especially like, not to jump too far ahead, but like the reunion.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
The reunion was wild. Like I know we're definitely jumping ahead.
Yeah.
But I felt like he was worse. Like he saw himself and decided to double down and just be even worse.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
It is. Yeah. And the fact that Shane was the voice of reason.
I know. Oh my
like,
gosh.
oh no, this is really bad if Shane's the voice of reason.
Yeah.
But we'll go back. So from the jump, when they're in the pods and Sheikh is meeting lady after lady, he comes off narcissistic.
Yeah.
And his ego is just like beaming off of him.
Yeah. And he's so superficial, right? Like
Yes.
The whole point of the show is that you get to know someone's personality and how they are emotionally and learn to be vulnerable. And his whole thing is he just wants to know what they look like and whether he can carry them on his shoulders at Coachella or whatever,
God. That line of the carrying on the shoulders. And this was season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. That was just so wild to me because I'm like, why not just date in your real life? It really felt like he came on the show to be on the show.
Yeah. And it was before, I'm sure they filmed season 2 before season 1 even aired. So
I think so. Yeah.
So he may not have even known how successful this show was going to be. Whereas, now people go on and it's obvious that they're there for fame.
Oh yeah, we see that all the time, especially like if you watch any of the 90-day iterations, all of them now are just Instagram influencers, So with him, he's a veterinarian, he's DJ Sheikh. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. That's fine. He has, let's see, misogynistic expectations of women for sure.
Yeah.
He goes on to say, well, I never dated within my race. So he's honest about that. But he wants a petite, blonde, that he could put on his shoulders, like you said before, at
Yeah.
Coachella.
Yeah.
And the premise of the show, as we said before, is finding an emotional connection, which I don't think he's capable of doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the dating only outside your race or whatever, everybody has preferences and things.
Sure.
But I found that interesting because he is in Chicago where there is a lot of people that look like him. So I'm like, you never just thought maybe you'd have a little bit you never just tried to date one person within your race.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
For sure. And
Yeah.
you're right. Everybody has their preferences, but he like really fixated on that. And
Mhm.
that's why it was really surprising that he went forward with Deepti and
Mhm.
decided to pursue that. So I wonder if like part of him was like, well, you know what? I might as well take the risk because here I am on the show and
Yeah.
she seems like a really cool person and she does.
Yeah.
I like her. I would probably be friends with her IRL, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, she's
And
amazing. Even now,
yeah.
she's still doing like really amazing stuff.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so good. And
Yeah.
she's just a beautiful person inside and out. You can
Hmm.
tell. And she has a very glowing, sparkling personality. And even when meeting with Deepti in the pods, she called him out on his behavior. She's like,
Yeah.
bruh, people are talking mad shit about you and the stuff that
Yeah.
you're saying in here, and it's not cool.
Yeah. No, I know. I totally agree. And I think that she was kind of bringing out the best in him in the pods.
Yes.
And I feel
Yeah.
like they did connect because they have like similar backgrounds. But
Yeah.
I find it so weird that, okay, like if you're a person that has a very specific type and that's it, then why would
Yeah.
you go on the show?
Yeah.
Right? Like you
I
shouldn't even be
agree.
going on the show unless you're a kind of person that's like, oh, I'm like, I'm attracted to different kinds of people, like
Right.
if so
I think
that in and of itself. Yeah, go
if your
ahead.
taste is all over the place, I think then this show makes sense. But yeah, like you said, if he's only interested in petite blonde girls, then maybe stick to environments where you're going to meet petite blonde girls. But
Definitely.
I think we see too in Love Is Blind that people come on the show because they have been dating a certain type and it hasn't gotten them where they want to go.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then they still get so fixated on looks and like Shake especially. I mean, I think you might have been the first one, who we saw be so fixated on what people look like.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Because it was not like that on season one. And then also we have to remember Deepti admitted as well that she never dated within her
Yeah.
race at all. So they had that
Yeah.
commonality with each other. And I think
Yeah.
like that's why they were like, you know what? Let's give it a chance.
Mm-hmm.
She got to like break him down a little bit and see the vulnerable side of him. But
Mm-hmm.
as soon as like things got real for
Yeah.
him, he put that way back up and like
Oh yeah.
he reverted back to his old ways. And it's sad because you can see like when he was being vulnerable and letting her get to that part of him, he actually was likable.
I totally
Like
agree.
he has that inside
Yeah.
of him.
I think he is pretty emotionally stunted and just kind of like emotionally broken. And I
Yeah.
don't think he knows how to be vulnerable and actually connected to someone when it's real. But I feel like in the
No.
pods, because she was like just a voice, kind of like you're saying,
Yeah.
Yeah.
he felt safe enough. And then the second that he saw her in real life and she became like a real person,
Yeah.
he put this like really like this, I feel like this emotional wall up, and it like he projected all this crazy aggressive sexual energy. Like he was like grabbing her ass and all this
Oh
stuff.
gosh, yeah.
And yeah, and I
Yeah.
feel like he was doing that as he was putting like an emotional wall up. And she just, I think, thought, oh, he's like really into me physically too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And like as we go on, you see him start to switch like during that honeymoon, like they call it the honeymoon vacation or whatever before they
Mm-hmm.
move into their, prefab apartments. But yeah,
Yeah.
like during the honeymoon, she's trying to be like really affectionate with him and telling Shake, like, I love you. I can't wait to have this life with you. I can't wait to have your babies. And he's like putting the brakes on. And you like
Yeah.
can see the
Yeah.
switch, like even in his face and
Mm-hmm.
vocally, like his tone changes with her a lot. And she doesn't really pick up on it that soon either. She's like, oh,
Yeah.
well, it's cool. You know, we're getting to know each other. It's fine.
I think she interprets it like he is, you know, trying to get comfortable with like putting a voice to the face.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's able to really be vulnerable in a true full relationship. And so
No.
I feel like he was just like deer in the headlights trying to be a snail that goes back into his shell.
Yeah.
I agree.
And it's so interesting to watch. And going back to even just when they first met, you know, he was so like, he seemed into her physically first, or maybe overcompensating. I don't know if he was like, let me make sure I'm really into it and just really go for it to make sure that physical connection obviously is important in any relationship, but especially since was so fixated on looks that he wanted to maybe jump in too fast. I don't know. And then it unfolds differently.
Oh, yeah, it really does, because, you know, he gets fixated on like, well, Deepti's giving me auntie vibes. And it's like, oh, yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes. Now, Laura and I are white women, but culturally, that's a big deal for Southeast Asian cultures, right? Where you have the auntie fixture of like your social circle, right?
Yeah, like your auntie. But even in this sense, I think like auntie can be, you know, generally in South Asian cultures, it's just like your parents' friends, your mom's friends, your parents' female friends, right?
Okay, yeah.
So, but I think in this sense, he actually meant his aunt too, which is weird. But that's another thing. I'm just like, you know, I feel like he feels like South Asian women are his family, and and he can only like feel sexually attracted to other women or something, which is, I don't know, like I mean, I'm not trying to go down a psychological rabbit hole with him, because that would be like too scary.
We'll be here forever.
Yeah. And I'm no therapist or anything, but I'm wondering if he came to the US around puberty, because I know he said he was like living in India before that, like he was born in India. So I wonder if that was why he started seeing like other women when he was like, you know, puberty age or something. I don't know.
Probably.
I just feel like that was weird. That's like a weird sort of thing in his mind, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting that he like you just said, I hadn't thought about that maybe he only refers to, you know, other Indian women as family and can't see them in like a romantic sexual way, which is,
it's sad because like not that I really, how do I say this? I don't really sympathize for him, because it's hard for me to sympathize for men in general. But like you see him like self-sabotaging everything. And it's like, well, what happened to you?
Yeah.
Like in a relationship sense, like what went wrong where you won't allow yourself to feel happiness? Because like he has this internal struggle where he's fixated on, well, I'm not attracted. But then there's other parts of the show where he's like, well, Deepti's the best thing that's ever happened to me. She's my best friend. She's such an amazing person. She is a beautiful soul, yada, yada. But like, he just won't let himself get over that hump. And it's like, why are you self-sabotaging so much? Like, why are you reverting back when she's bringing out the best in you? Probably because it's uncomfortable for him.
I think that's it. I think he gets so uncomfortable to be vulnerable and to like actually be with someone that he has that have so much understanding to him and that he respects so much. It puts him in a really scary place of like, what if she rejects him? So I feel like almost maybe he's just going to reject her first.
Yes. Yeah. And like he probably has a lot of insecurities. I mean, I can only imagine like, you know, growing up in, you know, whatever town, where were they? They were in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
So it is like
the Chicago season.
Yeah. So I can imagine like being in a city is extremely diverse, but like we don't know the neighborhood he grew up in, or, you know, like maybe he did feel insecure in some way.
Maybe he was bullied like when he like, you know, when he first got to the US, like in school with an accent, or maybe he didn't know English. Like I don't know all that. So maybe that all plays into it too. I don't know.
Right. And I can't help like feeling sympathy towards him. You know, I'm a mom of mixed children myself. So I see them now struggling with, they don't feel Korean enough or they don't feel white enough. And like, especially my oldest son. And then my youngest son has had comments made to him, well, I don't believe that you're actually Korean. And it's like,
Oh,
like if they're going through that in 2024 and how old are they here? Like maybe 30 the most on the show. Like it was probably so much worse when he was growing up. So like, I do have sympathy for him in that sense. It can't be easy. And then, Shake admitted to his mom too that, hey, I do like her and I think she's amazing, but I can't help but shake the feeling like I'm not attracted to her one bit. And his mom called him out. And I was like,
I love that.
Mom. Yay, Mom. And she's like, Deepti is a prize and she deserves a man who genuinely loves her. And even his friends were like, let's be logical and sensible about this, dude. Like, she's an amazing girl and you want to marry your best friend. Looks fade. Looks fade. And they're right. But he just could not look past that at all. And I think you're right. He probably was bullied and he just reverted back to what's comfortable to him.
I also just think like, I don't think he's ready to get married and that's okay. Like I feel like it's fine to just be like, I'm not in that place yet. Because like, even when we have those interactions of them having sushi together and stuff, just little things. Like I noticed he started giving her his ratings on the different like pieces of sushi they had. And he wants her to agree with his rating instead of talking about like, what do they both think about the flavors or whatever, rather than like acknowledging each other's and sharing the experience. He's like, what's better? And my opinion about what's better is correct. Just in those little interactions, I'm like, oh, you don't want to share with someone. You just want to like, he's very superficial and just very competitive,
Oh yeah,
definitely competitive and definitely, kind of his way. He was fixated on things being his way and, and what he wants. And definitely if that's where you're at, you're probably not ready for marriage.
No, not at all. It's a lot of give and take. And it makes me sad because Deepti was always very fond of him. And like, even though she never dated within her race, she allowed herself to get over that, right? Like, she allowed herself to fall for him. She got to the core, well, or so she thought, of his personality, allowing him to be vulnerable. And she spoke nothing but kindness about him on the show. And then was always defending him to the other ladies because they're like, red flag, red flag, red flag. You don't want to be with this guy. And she's like, but you guys. So she kind of had that like, well, I can fix him mentality. And that's really rough too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But I also feel like I'm going to give her a pass on that because I think it's a short period of time and she's trying to be a good partner. She's trying to see if it'll work,
Definitely.
And I just also felt so sad at, like knowing how it all comes out when she went to visit her family with him and they were like so sweet and like her parents loved him and they had such a great time. But you can always see in his face that he's like mildly disassociating and like totally freaked out,
Oh yeah, definitely. And like that's why I feel for her too, because she really did put in the effort and she was giving 100% to him. And he was always like maybe at 50 the most, 50% with her. He's constantly in his head overthinking it. Even with people calling him out, like trying to snap him back to reality, like, yo, you have a good thing going on here. But he couldn't allow himself to enjoy that at all.
No, and also, which I don't even think we've addressed this yet, his constant need to tell everybody who he interacts with that he's unattracted to her. And that was, I mean, I just remember when I watched the show the first time and like his friends and his family and all these people, he's like, well, she's this really amazing woman, but I'm just not attracted to her. And it wasn't like he said it to one person and where he like maybe finally fessed up. Like
Right.
he was telling everybody.
Every single person. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what his motive with that was, or what. I mean, he might have been looking for validation from. I mean, some of the other pod guys that like they weren't into their girls. Like, is it normal to
Yeah.
not be attracted to the person from the pod? I don't know. But also, he has some internal issues about dating within his own race, and not like you said earlier, thinking of them as family
Aunties,
and
yeah.
aunties, and not
Yeah.
someone who he could be sexually attracted to or intimate with.
Yeah, definitely. And to be honest, like leading up to their wedding, I did not expect Deepti to be the one to say no.
Yeah,
But
I know.
she's a lot smarter than people gave her credit for. Like she was
Yeah.
onto him. She she did put in the effort, but she could see. She's not a dumb girl at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think she was giving it her all, trying to see if it could get somewhere.
Mhm.
And then she realized that like I don't think this is going to get to where I need it to go, you
Right.
know.
Absolutely.
Especially like, even when they visited his apartment looks like a bachelor pad,
Oh
like
yeah,
Totally
definitely.
bachelor pad.
yeah, and like, he has a nice car. You could see he like does well for himself, but he
Yeah.
is like that's his personality.
Oh yeah,
He is all about the finer things in life and
definitely.
I feel like you can tell from that too that all he wants is like a trophy wife.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He's very materialistic.
Mm-hmm.
That's super important to him. And you're right, he had the car, he had like the very bachelor looking apartment.
Yeah.
And, sure, like you deserve to have nice things. You work hard for them. I get that. But like he makes that his whole personality.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
for
that's
sure.
that's where the problem is.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
and that doesn't leave room for like emotional intimacy at all because he's, super competitive and shallow and
Yeah.
materialistic, I think.
And very
right.
focused on the external, and how it appears, whether it's his car or his house or, the woman he's with, his trophy wife, he's so
Mm-hmm.
focused on how that all looks to everybody
Yeah.
else. And, uh, so maybe people don't look deeper and look
Right.
beyond that.
Right.
Most
Right.
definitely. And Deepti really tried to like get him to break out of that. But, you have to think, how many weeks is this really? Two, three,
Mm-hmm.
four, the most? Like, in a month, you're not going to make progress like that with somebody who's not willing to put in the work for themselves. Like she couldn't do it for him, basically.
Right.
And she tried to.
Yeah.
Um, and she kept trying to see like if he would reciprocate the feelings. And when it came down to it, she's like, you know what? I'm not settling for this. I'm not going to say yes to a man who isn't 100% about me. And I don't blame her at all. Marriage
Yeah,
is a big deal. You want your partner to be into you. And
for
I
sure.
get you have to be like sexually attracted to the person and you
Yeah.
have to have the marriage, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like he really was stringing her along and probably
Yeah.
for the wrong intentions.
Yeah. I agree. I think he was stringing her along. I think that he isn't, like I've been saying, I don't think he's ready for a full relationship. Like he's too
Mm-mm.
scared to be
No.
emotionally vulnerable. And that makes him just very much focus on the external.
Yeah.
And so he couldn't even give her that because he couldn't like open himself up enough. Deepti tried to do what she did, but even Shane did, like when I think they were shopping for their suits for the wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Shane sat him down and Shane's like, you need to stop being scared. You need to just like, go for it and see if you
Right.
can
Yeah.
break through this feeling of fear or feeling of thinking of her like your aunt or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he's like, do something romantic or whatever it is, just like
Yeah.
fix it and figure it out. But he's too afraid to try, I feel like.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
I,
that was the issue. But the other thing too is, he recognized, that there was this like deep emotional connection. And it was really frustrating to see that he wouldn't even just try. And it like, I
yeah.
mean, I don't know what all they did physically or anything, but like it seemed like probably not so much. Because if he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't able to even just try and see if that chemistry comes.
I think she even mentioned that, like, oh yeah, they had some intimacy, but it like trailed off like during the
Interesting.
honeymoon. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like at one point he says, before I found out if she was good in bed, I want to find out if she was good in head or something. He was trying to make some like,
Oh
Oh
no.
I was
God.
like, oh, you're trying to be clever, but you're not. Like,
No.
yeah.
And it's just wild to me, like the most egotistical, self-centered, arrogant people are so freaking insecure.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it's all a facade, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't want people to see behind the facade. Like, I just had an experience in my real life with someone who actually, not to get dark and deep, they passed away, and they were very similar. They were very focused on the external, how things
Yeah.
looked, my Instagram, my Facebook, my house, my
Mhm.
clothes. And then I realized that this person was probably a very sad individual.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's all a facade. If you keep
Yeah.
this up, no one will look in and see, oh, I'm this scared, insecure person. So my empathy for him is like not a lot, but I understand that. But he
Yeah.
just like, he leans into it.
I'm like, you can't be like, you need to figure yourself out. Like, I don't have empathy as much for him as I just find it interesting to like analyze his psychological state.
Oh, totally.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's really it's interesting to analyze
Yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
maybe empathy might have been too strong
Too
of a
strong.
word.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's interesting because there's more to this facade, like you said, of him, and what he presents. And I wish he had just gotten over that, but I don't think he could have. And obviously he has really kind of doubled down on his villainness.
Yeah. It's villainous.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting because I did watch a YouTube of
Mhm.
a therapist analyzing his behavior. And
Oh, wow.
she did say like he does have some, now obviously she's not treating him, but she can see some sort of personality disorder within him. And
Mhm.
he does give off narcissistic tendencies, which I mean, I think we can all see that.
Yeah.
And she also mentioned Deepti has her own insecurities, but she didn't feel like she had a personality disorder or anything like that. It was
Right.
more like, generalized, you got to work on your confidence, girl, kind of thing. So
Mhm.
I found that interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I would agree with that for sure. What did you guys think of the bachelorette party on the boat kind of scene when Deepti was talking to, gosh, what was her name?
Was it Mallory?
No, she was talking to the black woman.
Oh,
Oh,
Ayana?
Ayana.
Ayana, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who married
Yeah.
Jared, I think.
Yeah, who
Yes.
married Jared. Yes.
Yes.
Right.
So they had a really interesting conversation about Shake also. And I think Deepti was telling her how Shake's too logical. Like he just overthinks things and he's way too logical. And she doesn't want to have to convince him of her worth.
Right.
And so you could kind of see like exactly what you've been talking about, Kristen, where she's starting to see maybe even as hard as she tries, like it might not be enough,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like she kind of had a bond with Ayana in the sense because like Ayana was Jared's second pick. So they kind of like bonded over like these insecurities where they felt like they weren't enough for a man. And I
Yeah.
just was like, honey, you are more than enough. You are so dang amazing. Like,
Yeah.
do not settle for in I'm Italian. This baciagalup is what we would
Yeah.
say, meaning like you're this stupid person. Like,
Yeah.
don't settle for that. And it was nice to see like the castmates actually have Deepti's back in this.
Yeah.
Especially during the reunion too.
Yeah.
Everybody called him out on his shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the guys stuck up for her, and that made me feel like she had people on her side. And I bet that helped her feel a little bit better because she's like, well, it really wasn't me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
No,
this
totally.
is not my fault. This is a him problem and he needs help. It's not me.
You know, it's funny you say that because I was thinking as you were saying it that you can really see like the more he feels like people are not on his side, the more he seems to double down and his like
Oh, yeah.
crazy personality
Yeah.
traits
And he
come out more.
lashes, yeah, he lashes
Yeah.
out. He
Yeah.
like reverts to probably teenager Shake, where
Yeah.
he's like, I'm big mad, fuck
Yeah.
everybody. Ah! And like,
Yeah.
you know,
I was just gonna comment on the boat thing. I think it was interesting to watch, Deepti go through, kind of like, I don't know, say make excuses, but, sort of rationalize how he was acting or not acting. And then it starts to kind of seep out. And I think it must have been hard for her she probably didn't want to admit to herself too that, he's just not that into me. And we watched a couple of YouTubers analyzing their relationship to kind of recatch up on them. And one of them was about, he's just not that into you, and using Deepti and Shake as kind of an example.
Interesting.
And this YouTuber made some really interesting points about, as women, we kind of like try to rationalize what men are doing and, try to analyze when sometimes it's not that deep and it's just, oh, he's just not that into me. And
my husband tells me this all the time about like just little stuff. I'm like, maybe, was it because you wanted to do this or that, or this was a reason? He's like, no, I just felt like that at that time. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I'm definitely the overthinker in my relationship too. And he's always like, come on now, be real, you know? So I get that completely. And you're right, Laura. Like, I think having that conversation with Ayana really helped her realize, like, well, this is not going to end well. You know, we're not going to the altar and saying I do at all.
Yeah. And then at the wedding, before we go to the reunion.
Yes, the wedding. How can I forget the wedding?
Yeah. I mean, it was so beautiful to see, and I loved all their outfits and everything, and all the traditions and the drumming.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love that they both wore more traditional, clothing. And it was gorgeous, like visually beautiful.
Visually beautiful for sure.
The thing that wasn't beautiful was after she says no to him and she walks off, he wants to like party, and he's trying to convince people his ego's not hurt about it. And then he even says to some guests that like, oh, I'm so glad she said no because I can take it, but I wouldn't have wanted to say no, like implying
that is wild.
Yes. I remember he was like, he still wanted to be like a showboat. And I mean, obviously, we all remember when she was like, I choose myself, which was, I mean, I just remember like clapping when I watched the episode.
Mic drop. Yeah.
I know. It was because it was like I said earlier, I was curious what was going on in her head. And if she was like putting all these pieces together and not saying it out loud. And then, she realized when she got to the altar, like, no, he's not into me, and I'm going to choose myself. So it was interesting to see it all come out at once rather than like her slowly figuring out and us seeing, the pieces of her figuring it out. And she just, but then he has to go and be a showboat too and still be like, and then be like, oh, well, this is still a celebration of like two people who like
friends or two friends or whatever he said, but it was more like, well, it's just a celebration about me, because that's how his brain thinks. And another thing, like, and this seems to be the theme in like the shows we're covering, the trash garbage shows we're covering, is where people do not know how to be honest to themselves about their own feelings. And you see that a lot with him. Like, sure, he's verbalizing, well, I'm not attracted to her, blah, 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 making excuses, but he's not thinking about like how he truly feels about hurting somebody else. Or like even considering her feelings either. It was very one-sided with him.
And I feel like it's almost this strange, like full circle moment, because I feel like maybe his walls have been up all this time. He's been afraid of vulnerability. And he can't really have this true relationship because he's afraid of rejection. And in the end, he set himself up for this like huge rejection. And now he's trying to overcompensate and like cover up for that.
Yeah, Definitely. He's a self-sabotager for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. And a lot of people who have like trauma, obviously I'm just speculating on what has happened to him, but like, if he's being bullied and he has trauma, his self-worth is down. So he overcompensates with the finer things in life and having all the material things.
Yeah.
And that became his personality. And,
Yeah.
he's DJ Shake. He's just this cool freaking guy. Like, who wouldn't like me,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I love seeing her choose herself at the wedding. And, of course, he's, as you said, Shabnam, he's going to double down. He's going to, act like he's so unbothered. And deep down, he really is bothered by this.
And I think it all came out at the reunion.
Oh, yeah. So I know I think I was just so excited about the reunion. I just was like, please, let's get there. Please, let's get there. Okay. So, like, the reunion starts and there he is. He's like, well, editing. Yeah. Sir, please. No, you can't blame your shit behavior on editing. I'm sorry.
You still did it.
You still did it.
Exactly. You still did it.
They were able to edit that together because you still did those things.
Right. Yeah. And he was more concerned about how he came off than Deepti's feelings. Like, it just goes to show where his concerns are at. Like, oh, do I look good? Do I look good? Oh no, they made me look bad. No, you did that to yourself.
Yeah. And also it's like, try not to suck up all the oxygen in the room at once, Like I was like, God, just hold on for 1 second and let someone else get a word in,
I know, because he automatically went into victim mode where he's like, well, this person did this and this person said this and this happened to me and da da da. And it's like, the damage control is not working here at all.
And I loved at one point, I think Deepti was talking to Shayna and Shayna was just like, let him keep talking. He's just hanging himself.
Yes. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
The castmates called him out on his behavior, especially Shane. Shane was like, dude, you did this to yourself. You hurt this amazing, beautiful woman. And then Shake has the audacity to say, yeah, they're all beautiful ladies in here, but the only one I'm really attracted to is Vanessa Lachey. And I'm like, you're just digging that hole, son. Like, you're not coming out on top with this.
I feel like that tells you something about him. I feel like all he wants is the biggest prize, the highest status, the most like the biggest trophy wife, right? And it's like obviously Vanessa's famous and all of that. And I think that's just as much a part of it as looks, potentially.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. No, I agree. I think, if it was, because Vanessa Lachey, is she white? I don't.
No, she's a Filipino mix. She's a
that's what I thought. I was like, she's not white. So like,
she's not blonde.
And she's not blonde. So
tiny blonde girl that.
So
I mean, I think he wants this once again, that external, like, I want the fanciest, nicest thing, most famous person.
He's extremely self-absorbed. He thinks, he's God's gift to women, which, I mean, he's not a bad looking guy, but like his personality makes him so ugly to me. So ugly. And
it's just repulsing because he doesn't have any depth to him,
No.
So it's like, what's the point? Of like, and I feel like you could tell that she had that vibe. She was like, what was the point of me having any kind of like trying at all with him? So
he's definitely very surface level with everything. And then he makes this analogy, saying having a marriage with Deepti is like making a huge purchase.
Oh,
and I had to really weigh out the options of this huge purchase. Like, I'm sorry, do I want to be compared to like, a $40,000 car? Like, I'm more than that. And so is Deepti. Like, that, I found that insulting in my, I just was like, this guy, all he cares about are possessions. And he's basically saying like, women are a possession to me.
It's like, you see this, like, I think even in the latest season of Love is Blind. Gosh, I forget his name. Leo, yes. Leo was talking about them as like pasta and burgers or something.
Yeah.
And it's just like, stop talking. Like these men need to stop talking.
They really do. It's so degrading. It's sexist. And it's like, have you learned anything? Like, come on.
Yeah.
And he's just saying all this stuff because he's just trying to like evade any kind of responsibility for hurting the angel that is Deepti.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he makes a comment like, well, love isn't blind, but it sure is blurry.
Yeah.
Wow, riveting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then like Vanessa Lachey said, then you shouldn't have gone on the show.
Absolutely.
And I just think he's just trying to avoid accountability at all costs. He's just keeps putting his foot in his mouth more and more, trying to avoid any kind of accountability or say sorry or accept any fault.
Yeah, he has extremely distorted views on relationships in general, which is interesting because his parents were still together, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has seen like I'm assuming healthy marriage, but he has like these really distorted views on women and relationships and the expectations of, long-term relationships, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, and his mom seems level-headed, nice, wonderful. Like, so
Absolutely.
I'm like, hang out with her more, like,
I loved his mom. I remember loving his mom. And but I think he still hasn't like quite figured out that, women are people and not objects. And, and so his partner, his girlfriend, his wife, whatever, is still part of that, like, the package that makes him up. So the external view that people see, oh, he has this great job and this great apartment and this great car and this beautiful wife, and it all looks great, and he has the status and all these. It's still the external is the most concerning thing, rather than emotional depth and emotional intimacy too. And
I totally agree.
Connection with someone.
I absolutely agree with that. He takes no ownership in regards to Deepti's feelings. He insults the other women who are there.
Mm-hmm.
He, his friends even were like more logical about this and was like, dude, just be honest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't do that. And Deepti at one point says, unfortunately, there was no change with Shake, even present day, like after the show, he was going on podcasts, making videos, having interviews with, smutty magazines, like gossip magazines, like talking, like telling his side of the story. And I'm using quotation marks, his side of the story about like how the editing was bad. And like, it's not fair what happened to him. And Deepti says like, it's okay if you're not attracted to me. I get it, but you should have been honest. And I agree with her. And she's a goddess. And he even says, yeah, she is the goddess and I'm the villain. And I'm like, well, that's the most self-aware thing you've said all season.
but I feel like he wasn't being sincere when he said it was being like probably cheeky and sarcastic.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think he's leaned into the villain role and like kind of embraced it, and like maybe embraces is not the best word, but like he's just made that his personality. And and still, which is still him avoiding any accountability. He's like, well, I'm just this villain person. And, our favorite guy, Cody Brown, is like, well, I'm just, I'm just an asshole. And like, instead of taking accountability. So, I think that's how he ended up, is he's still on this, like, well, I'm just a villain. I'm just a mean guy. And is his way of avoiding like getting to any kind of like depth and take accountability and have some emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, at one point she says like he's just a pathological liar, and I feel like that's just how he is. Like he's gonna lie at all costs to avoid the truth.
Yeah.
I totally agree with Jen that he is just looking for someone to make him look good rather than someone to be a partner.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
He wants the trophy wife, and that he cares more about materialistic things 100%. And Shake shows no remorse for his awful behavior and tries to pass it off. Well, like, this is just what I like and this is just who I am. And he misses the point completely. And it's really sad when like everybody can see what the problem is, but that person cannot look outside to anyone else, you know, see their points of view. And he's just very stuck in his own head, you know?
Yeah.
And he just doubles down and he's just playing it off like, well, I can't change. Well, yeah, you can if you actually try.
Yeah, but he spends all his time trying to showboat that he's actually insightful about other people's relationships. And again, like talking over people, butting into their segments. And he just, you know, he doesn't want to actually reflect on like, maybe I could have done something different or better.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure you all will probably agree with this too, is like, I think he went on the show for popularity, notoriety, to fill his ego. He was like, oh, well, this seems cool. I'll do this, whatever. Maybe I'll get a really hot girl I could put on my shoulders for the next concert I go to, you know? Like,
yeah. And like more followers on my Instagram for my DJ, whatever.
I know.
You know, like
a veterinarian DJ is such an odd combination.
I know.
And but it's still, and then I guess when they filmed the reunion, you know, several episodes of the show have aired. And at that point, you know, season 1 was a huge success. So he definitely had a strategy coming into the reunion.
Yeah.
And to go forward, seeing how successful the show is. And I don't know, maybe he thought, well, I can be a villain as a brand. And like, you know, he leaned into whatever, you know, would promote his brand and get him, you know, more clout rather than, which I'd say, unfortunately, maybe it worked because then people are like, oh, well, let me look at Shake and see what ridiculous thing he said. And
like on TikTok and stuff and his Instagram, you know, his following went up a lot because people love to hate follow reality TV stars. I'm sure we all do it. I mean, I still follow Mary Brown. Like, come on, you know?
Yeah.
You know, Laura and I are constantly like, what is she wearing? What is she doing? Oh no. And like, you know, it's a natural thing. We're all curious.
I totally agree. And I just think her best revenge is that she's doing way better than him. She has you know, monetized the crap out of her whole experience there, and good for her. Like she's
I love that she's been so successful. I mean, their podcast, Out of the Pods, her and Natalie's podcast is so popular.
So good.
And it's so good. And she's monetized and capitalized on this experience that she went through. And she came out on top, obviously. Like even now, I think right at the beginning, people were sort of interested in Shake, but then also super interested in Deepti. I think she might have been one of the first people to get over a million followers from Love is Blind. And she's still one of the most like talked about, like, Love is Blind historical figures.
She's definitely the Love is Blind sweetheart. You know what I mean? Like people just really fell in love with her, so to speak, because she was relatable too. Like she was a real person, you know what I mean? Like she didn't come off fake. She wasn't like this Instagram model. She's a beautiful girl. She's curvy. She talks about her struggles with like her own self-image, her own weight loss, things like that, which, you know, I can relate to a lot. And I'm sure a lot of us can.
Yeah, definitely.
And, you know, as we were talking before, like with most reality people these days, even with this current season of Love is Blind, it's like all of them are like, well, look at me, look how good looking I am, I have millions of followers on Instagram. And Deepti wasn't like that from the jump.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think her words of "I chose myself" have like followed her, and that's I feel like what she's known for, and it's amazing. And
I love
she
it.
deserves all the success.
I agree. And I wish nothing but the best for Deepti. And as for Shake, and I'm wearing the shirt too, blame yourself if I don't love you, Shake.
Oh, I love that.
And blame yourself if Deepti doesn't love you, or America.
Well, and I'm wearing my Lead with Kindness sweatshirt.
Oh, so. There you go. So there you go. Take notes on that, Shake.
That's what she did. I think she did ultimately lead with kindness, and and it has worked out for her.
Yeah,
I am wearing my Worthy Down t-shirt, so
I like it. I like it.
And he certainly did worthy down with his behavior and actions. So
Yes, he did.
it's fitting. We're all wearing
Yes.
fitting clothing attire to
I love
correlate with this episode. But yeah, it was really a riveting like look back on their relationship. And I think for the times of reality TV and dating shows, it was like wild to see, you know, it unfold and witness the he's just not into you in real time. Well, in realish time, you know what I mean? Like, and then actually seeing a woman defend herself and not settle for some guy who's not all in. You love to see it.
Yeah.
I think she's a great role model.
Yeah, I think she really is too. And I think that's, again, part of her success and her longevity. Like she hasn't disappeared like a lot of other reality show stars that get their 15 minutes. And it's because of that, because she really had a lot of substance, unlike Shake. You know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
She totally won.
This episode was a doozy and so much fun to look back on Love is Blind Season 2, Deepti and Shake. If you enjoyed this big old heap of garbage, we are the Reality Rewind podcast. I'm Kristen, my lovely co-host Laura. We will be back on Tuesday with a continuation of Rock of Love Season 1, Episode 10, Meet the Parents. Give us a follow, share with friends, and leave a 5-star review, please. And we did this awesome collab with Shubnam. Thank you so much, Shubnam. We really appreciate it.
And thank you for giving us this invitation to go back and look at the Deepti and Shake.
Yes, it was so good. We absolutely love it.
Yeah, and thank you.
What do you have coming up, Shubnam, with your podcast?
Yeah, what do you have?
So we're Chai After Dark, and you can find us at Chai After Dark everywhere. We have Welcome to Chippendales coming up. So it's a Hulu scripted series starring Kumail Nanjiani about about how Chippendales started. So it was a Indian immigrant named Steve Banerjee who wanted to start a backgammon club, and somehow it pivoted into Chippendales. So
that sounds fascinating. I'm going to watch along and listen along for sure.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Shabnam. This was so fun. And
thank you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Hope you enjoyed this special crossover episode, and a special thank you to the ladies at Reality Rewind Podcast. Of course, the links are in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe, obviously, everywhere, wherever you're listening to this. Things change so much on social media and their features. You never know and want to miss a post because your algorithm missed it. So check us out, chaiafterdark.com, and sub to the newsletter. Next episode, Shubnam, Sameem, and my raspy voice will be there to recap, rewatch episode 2 of Welcome to Chippendale. See you soon.
This episode was produced, edited, marketed, and created by Shubnam, Captain Ron, and Sameem of Chai After Dark, LLC, in association with Great Pods.